Minnesota House Republicans are calling for a statewide progress report on academic achievement during the pandemic. The request coming after a report that 40% of high school students in the St. Paul Public School District are failing. Lawmakers saying this information is crucial and that we need to see how students are being impacted by COVID-19 restrictions and school closures so that we can change course before it's too late. Deputy Commissioner of Education Heather Mueller joins me now from her home in Mankato. More and more districts, Heather, have switched to either a hybrid learning or at-home learning model. Some are concerned that the governor might close schools again completely, like what happened at the beginning of the pandemic. Is there talk of that at the state level?
I think that the governor has always been clear that there is never anything off the table when we were thinking about the way that the virus is spreading. But in this last iteration in conversations around mitigation strategies and what we need to do to stop the spread, at this point in time, we've really focused on trying to maintain as much in-person learning and hybrid learning as possible based on the data in the school community, really looking in that safe learning plan and trusting our school leaders. That partnership is incredibly important, and at this point in time, that's really where our focus of attention is.
And I know that at the state level, in the Department of Education, and we've heard Commissioner Ricker say it many times, the best learning for students is in school, and you recognize that. Since the argument is many students don't get seriously ill from COVID, being in school is best for them. Teachers, however, have their own concerns, understandably. So talk to me about how balancing that has been at the state level.
Well, I think a couple of things we started with was really in our partnership with the Department of Health is really thinking about in the development of that safe learning plan is what are the things that we need to consider when thinking about moving between an in-person, a hybrid, and a distance learning model. And the very first thing that was identified as the goal is the number one priority is to maintain the safety, health, and wellness of our students, staff, and families. And the second priority was really to ensure that if possible, if we could meet that first goal, that we would have our students in person. And if we can't have all students in person, that we would prioritize some of our youngest students. And so we've thought about how is it that we can continue to move toward having an in-person model and a hybrid model, but also maintaining that safety and health and wellness. But I think one important thing to consider is that although we may have students who are not testing positive or who are not symptomatic, we also do have students who are asymptomatic. And their role in this is not only about them as an individual, it's about what they are bringing into a school and their interactions with teachers and with any school staff and personnel. It's also being thoughtful about what those additional students are taking home to their families. It's what our staff are taking home to their families, and really recognizing that in this entire time that the conversation around COVID hasn't solely been based on an individual and what's happening to that single person. It really is more of a community approach and recognizing the impact that your health has on others.
Over the last probably 3 months or so since the last time the governor was down here in southeastern Minnesota, and I interviewed him at Byron. I've heard from teachers who say we were supposed to have the option to teach from home or to teach inside the classroom, and districts vary from district to district. And some of the teachers were not happy that their superintendent wasn't allowing them to teach at home. What's the state guideline for that? Because some of these teachers want to be home because they have compromised health or maybe their spouse does.
Right. Well, I'm not going to speak specifically to the instance in Byron because I don't have any experience with that. But what I can speak to is in the executive order, the governor did articulate that if you can work from home, then you should work from home. And so that is inclusive of people who do have pre-existing conditions. Those people that may be more vulnerable have been identified in that more vulnerable category. And also if your work can be done from home. But there are other pieces that you need to take into consideration when thinking about what that looks like. And so that's why our superintendents and school leaders, as well as our educators and school personnel, really have to continue to be in a constant conversation about what that looks like for them in their communities and what is appropriate in being able to work from home.
I've asked My interview with Deputy Education Commissioner Heather Mueller will continue after the break, and I'm asking about teachers who have requested to work from home, as you just heard there, and are we facing a teacher shortage? We'll be back. Before the break, you heard my conversation with Deputy Commissioner of Education in Minnesota, Heather Mueller, centering on the current state of education and were there any talks of shutting schools down. She said that is not off the table as the governor continues to evaluate the health and safety all throughout Minnesota during the rising COVID-19 cases. We're continuing that conversation and beginning with the shortage of staffing in districts statewide. I've asked superintendents over these last 8 months or so if they were afraid of or if they are losing teachers, because some teachers simply do not want to be inside the school because of understandable reasons. You know, they have elderly parents that maybe they care for or whatever the reason is. We had a shortage in Minnesota of substitute teachers before this pandemic started. So can you talk to me about where we're sitting with teachers and the need? Do we have a growing need for teachers? I'm imagining so.
Well, I think that your point is really important, is that looking at substitute teachers has been something that we've talked about for quite a while, actually, across the state. And so it has not gotten better within a pandemic. The second piece of that is that we have been seeing that there are some staff members who are choosing to either step away from their work or take some time or take a leave because they do have some other roles that they need to play with some of their other family members. And so like in a number of other professions that are consistently working and through this pandemic, is that we are seeing people who are making those choices, but we also know we have a number of staff who are choosing to stay and continue to work. And so the issue of students, or not students, sorry, the issue of staff members considering doing other work or stepping out of their role as an educator or our substitute teachers is something that we've always been having a conversation about and will continue to do so.
Let me ask you this. If I'm a teacher and my superintendent has told me I cannot teach from home and that is my preference, what options do I have? Can I come to the Department of Education with a complaint, or these teachers who contact me saying, Betsy, we haven't been able to stay home because of our superintendent, they want to know what their next step is and not lose their job?
Sure. Well, I think that the first and foremost and most important thing is that relationship between that staff member and their either their principal or their human resources department, as well as with their superintendent. They always have the opportunity to have a conversation with their school board members as well. If in those instances those pieces do not work, then they also have the opportunity to talk with the Department of Human Rights, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, as well as with their union representatives, if they have a union representative, and also the Department of Labor and Industry, if appropriate.
What are you thinking the rest of this school year is going to look like? As you know, none of us know what's going to happen, but I do know that you have talks about different scenarios. What is it that you're projecting?
Well, I think that what we're doing is we're really taking a step every single day. None of us have ever had the opportunity or the need to lead through a pandemic. And so as we are partnering with our other agencies, and specifically with the Department of Health, we are learning something new every single day. And so as we learn, we can make adjustments and decisions and recommendations based off of those pieces. And so what we know is that we are going to continue to promote the Safe Learning Plan. We are going to continue to provide guidance and support to our school leaders as well as our educators across the state. We are going to continue to prioritize the safety, health, and wellness of our students, staff, and families. And we will always try to get our students back into the building for either an in-person model or a hybrid learning model when it is safe and when they can be healthy, and we can guarantee that for our students and for our staff. And so I think that that's what we're projecting, is that we're going to continue to work alongside our education partners to do what is in the best interest of our students, staff, and families.
Yeah, and it is a balancing act. I do not envy all that you all have had to do at the state level. I appreciate you taking the time, though, to talk to me about where things are at right now.